Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast with Joe Pine, author of The Experience Economy and every other book on the topic, Dave Norton, an experience futurist and founder of Stone Mantle, and me, Aranza Savis, an expert in coaching, motivation, and behavior change. Each week, we bring you a trending story related to experience and share our hot takes. And we try to do it in under 20 minutes with mixed success. Today, we are going over to the Wall Street Journal. Title of the article is How a Small North Carolina College Became a Magnet for Wealthy Students. The subhead here, the summary, I guess, is schools are trying to attract the limited pool of higher end families, and High Point University is a blueprint. Half of Wall Street sends their kids to this school. The article is by Roshan Fernandez, and it was released on October 21st online. And we'll be excited to continue this conversation with you because the key point of this article is really based in the belief that this school is going to set a trend in terms of how schools design their experience to attract higher end students. And I know we've all been really excited to talk about this. So Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Sure. So although they've recommended the article, I actually have it right here in my ink-stained hands.
Wow, that was really good Foley there with all
Right.
that
Web-page article on my
crinkling
birthday,
paper.
actually.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. So the paper title is a little different. It's Lush Campus Becomes a Magnet for Rich Kids, which tells you like the two sides of the article.
Mhm.
One is how they're creating such as lush campus, and the other on how they're trying to get. One of the reasons they're doing it is they're trying to get more and more kids to pay full price and come here
Yep.
because of it, and not because it's they have to give scholarships and a cheaper alternative, which is an anti-commoditization move, which I greatly applaud. So I saw that just title, and I read the first line. And I just thought, okay, here's another Experience Economy article on how colleges are pampering their students and providing all these high-end amenities, luxury hotels, and so forth, and compete with other colleges and everything else in the Experience Economy. And I've been seeing these on colleges for like 15, 20 years. And it begins, I quote, on a typical weeknight, students at High Point University, this is in South Carolina, might sit down to filet mignon at 1924 Prime, the on-campus steakhouse, right? So I'm going, okay, here we go. But then it switches immediately into a transformation economy article. It continues, as you said, the reporter Rashon Fernandez. This isn't a mere perk. Servers are told to coach the young diners on body language, professional attire, which fork to use, when to salt their food. It is one of the striking amenities at High Point, which prides itself on preparing students for the rigors of a career. Right. And so I think that is the key. It's really all the amenities are there to prepare students for what they're going to encounter.
Mhm.
Again, it's a transformational view. The High Point's tagline is the premier life skills university, right? So it's preparing for life, things that they will use. So transformative experiences, right there in that tagline and what they're doing. The president, Dr. Nito Cubine, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, apologies. He's quoted as saying in the article, as far as I'm concerned, we have no amenities. We're not in the business of pampering students. We're in the business of preparing our students.
Wow.
Again, beautiful, right there. He's actually got a book out last year. I found out from the article called Extraordinary Transformation, right? That's on its way to me from Amazon. I just think it's a beautiful piece in thinking about how you use experiences to transform people, right? It's not just about, we always talk about memorable. Dave loves talking about meaningful experiences, but transformative experiences. And this is just a great example of that and why it makes sense for a lot of people to send their schools. And the other thought that occurred to me, and then I'll let somebody else talk, is I said the tagline is the premier life skills university. Is there another one? Is there anybody else who has life skills as a tagline?
Fair question.
I don't think so.
Fair question. And if this is a blueprint, as the article suggests, there may be many more because there is a crisis facing secondary education right now in America. So much federal funding has been cut this year. And So much of American education has been subsidized. And so if we take away the full price paying international students who are now drastically limited, these schools don't know who or how they're going to fund their schools. And so, an article like this, shining a spotlight on an alternative model at this moment, has massive potential to disrupt the system.
Which it needs.
And I think you're absolutely right that it's an exciting positioning of it because it isn't just a commercialization. It is really looking at creating a meaningful, transformational experience for kids beyond just maybe learning how to socialize and play beer pong. And
Well, now there's a life skill for some people, I'm sure.
but probably not. So we did some really exciting work. I know we've talked a lot about on this show with a company called Yellow Car, which works with international schools around the world to understand stakeholder needs. So their research focuses not just on student experience, but parent experience as well as educator experience. And I think one of the things that was so exciting about that was the consideration of how much parent needs influence choice and satisfaction. And that it really is right. It is all three of those stakeholder needs and consideration that creates a very valuable transformative experience. And I think that has to be what these folks are using as their driving insight is, well, what do parents want from this?
Yeah.
Parents want their kids to get out of here and actually have a job and be able to take care of themselves and not move into their basement. And at a time when it feels like the post education career path is so uncertain, where the best guidance we're getting, and I say this as somebody who has a sophomore and a senior in high school right now, the best guidance we're getting is your kids should consider plumbing.
Yeah, no, actually.
Well, growing field.
Yeah.
I mentioned one thing before let Dave get a word in edgewise. What you mentioned about parents, Francis, is very important. One of the things I talk about in the forthcoming Transformation Economy book about different kinds of aspirants in that is that often you have simple statement: the customer is the one who pays you money, but they're not always the one who's being transformed. Right? Often, like in parent-kid situation, you have a beneficiary.
Yep.
And it's the beneficiary you need to focus on, but you also can't neglect the needs and the jobs to be done of the one who's paying the money, of the customer, of the parents in this case.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
right.
Shout out to David and Suzette.
Suzette, yeah.
And we know they listen on a regular basis. And
they just came out with a great report, I think.
Yeah, they did. So
yeah, you can find it on LinkedIn and on their website.
So
we'll link to it in show notes too.
That'd be awesome. The one of the funny things in the article that I liked was it's like being on a movie set. You know, like they had the whole of an airplane,
right,
where you could sit in first class and see. And part of me was cracking up a little bit about that because most of the kids that go here are children of people that are Wall Street bankers. So at least that's the way it was described. I don't know if that's true. Something tells me they've sat in first class before.
I always leave my kids in coach. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, I know your parenting style is different.
That's right. They got to learn to have a hard scrapper life before they make it onto premium economy and then all the way to first class.
This is a fascinating topic for a lot of different reasons. There has been a depreciation people have talked about in terms of life skills that young men have, young women have as well. So life skills is a big issue in general to take on. There's a lot of challenges that people are dealing with in terms of mental health when they go to school. So there are all kinds of things that universities and colleges could be doing to support students that they're not maybe they've seen as secondary,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe need to be more primary,
Mm-hmm.
as their students have to compete against not just a larger workforce, but also against artificial intelligence and other tools that are going to be out there, other countries that are going to be focused on making sure that their students are the best. So there's so much to be done at the university level. I know all of my kids. My daughter is on her second master's. One of my sons has 2 masters. I've got a daughter-in-law that's working on her PhD right now.
Don't you know nobody can serve 2 masters?
Yeah. Good example there. When I talk to them,
Dad jokes. Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast.
When I talk to them, they say, we're going to get as much education as we possibly can because we think that having a bachelor's degree is going to be completely commoditized. And, everybody's going to have it. So how are you going to differentiate your offering? The other thing that I like about this is they have a strong point of view about what the future for their students looks like. And I think most universities don't have a strong point of view about what the future of the university looks like.
They also have a strong point of view on who their customer is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a pretty bold move, right? They just told me in this article, don't apply. Not because... Not because I don't want my kid to have life skills, because I would like her to have life skills. Would she be comfortable in a school full of Wall Street brokers' kids? No, she would not. And so they were very clear about the culture too. Mm-hmm. They were very clear about who their customer was, and that allows them to design for that customer. My daughter and I, of course, are talking nonstop about college selection right now. And the conversation we had this morning really centered on the fact that I was talking to our counselor this morning as well about the parallels between speed dating and college selection, and how it is so much about cultural fit and taking kind of leaps in the dark based on small signals. And so my daughter said the most compelling signal she's gotten is from a university in Walla Walla, Washington, Whitman, who marketed themselves in this way. Dear Savannah, we are pleased to report that we have a 1-to-1 student to tree ratio. She was like, Mom,
this is the place to go.
I have found my school. They were clear. They had a point of view on who they were going to attract. That would not have worked for the kids who were going to High Point. And so it just, to me, really solidifies again in this ever more competitive environment, having that strong point of view, not just about who our customer is, but once we know that, understanding what they will need.
I would not go so far as to say that, kids that have Wall Street parents don't like trees or anything.
I didn't say that.
There's clear implication.
I think people who are going to High Point are not selecting they're not selecting based on tree ratios.
Right.
That's awesome. You think about, this is the part of the podcast where Dave talks about history for a second, because he always does, right?
You need a special music bug for that. Oh, was it just Joe snoring?
But here in Utah, where I'm at, you had Utah State University, and it was about agriculture. Everybody knew, and every state had its agricultural university, right?
Is that the main agriculture in Utah?
No. There's a lot of other minerals here, just beyond salt.
Not just salt.
Yeah. But that's what it was about. University of Utah, it was the medical school. And that's, everybody knew that's what it was about. BYU, it's about Latter-day Saints, right? And helping them to be professionally ready for their lives. So they each had a very different...
Or they came to play football there, one of the two.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So each one of them had a very different, distinct purpose. And I think a lot of universities are starting to feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
So Utah State wanted to do some of the same things in terms of their business school that maybe BYU and University of Utah were doing. And, and then you have smaller community colleges that are saying, we're just like these larger universities, but we're less expensive and we have more people. That causes a lot of overlap, and it doesn't represent a real strong point of view. It doesn't focus on transformation. You don't know where you're going to end up at the end of the day. We may be going to a point where universities need to pick a lane, and they need to be really good at that lane in order to be successful.
So my hearty recommendation is make that a transformative lane.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what people are going to do and also recognize that it's not about just the 4 years or however many years you're spending in the place. It's about how are you with them as they go in their life? How do you take these life skills out there and be able to help be alongside them as they grow, as they change, as they get jobs and so forth. University got to think of something else as an X-year school instead as a lifelong school, including with life skills.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the answer to that used to be go to an Ivy League. And so the fact that these people are not fighting tooth and nail and spending all their money to send them to Harvard or Yale and are instead sending them to High Point says an enormous amount about this shift.
Yeah, and it might be in part because Harvard and Yale and Princeton have kind of blurred the lines, lost track of what the purpose of higher education is. There's a wide range of different things that are going on.
Or they're just not selling the need. They're not positioning themselves to meet the need of that consumer anymore. Who was their consumer?
Yeah, right. I mean, it very well be.
It used to be the exclusivity.
The beneficiaries of a university education, if we're talking about that for a second, Joe, using your term, the beneficiaries might be the administrators. It might be the tenured. It might be the tenured faculty.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely,
it might be the research arm.
Right.
There's so many things that don't have to do with educating students that are going on in universities, all of which is good. I don't have a problem necessarily with that. But High Point is clearly focused on educating students and on transforming students through education. So kudos to them. I can totally see that they're going to be successful, and there's going to be other colleges that are going to pay attention to this approach.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in terms of our collective advice to other schools who are looking at this model and saying, this is interesting. I think the advice would be to really focus on a transformational offering beyond the outcome of a degree.
Yeah.
A degree to what end?
Wait. Even better, Rances, understand that a degree is not an outcome. A degree is an output.
Okay. Yep.
Right. The outcome is the life skills. The outcome is the capabilities. It's the knowledge that you gain, abilities that you have. Right. And that's one of the problems. They think it's just a degree.
They're like, you got the degree.
Right. And that's an output, not an outcome.
Yeah. They need to provide some sort of meaningful transformation. And I think we'll continue to see more and more. Speaking of LDS, what's his name? Gabrielle, what's her name? She's an influencer. She and her husband just launched an online university, which offers like 30 different degrees for $2,000.
No, wow.
Fully accredited.
Oh, wow.
Accredited. Wow. Well, I've long thought that the problem with higher ed, or what will be the consequences of the problems with higher ed is a better way to state that, is it's like how I think it was Ernest Hemingway said it, of a character in one of his novels about how he was asked, how did he go bankrupt? And it was very slowly and then all at once. And I think that's very, very much with the rise of AI, with the rise of remote education, with the rise of focus on not just skills but actual jobs that you can do through certificates and just through plain old learning. With people like Peter Thiel and others saying, "Hey, don't go to college. Just like start a business." Right? That's what it's about. That it's very possible that higher ed could do that. Just all of a sudden, just collapse, and everybody says, "Hey, why?
Yeah.
Why should we go?"
Okay, so this is a very serious conversation that we've had. We need something a little lighter to kind of end things. Rancis, tell us about your weekend.
Oh, I will first tell you that her name is Gabrielle Blair, and the school is called New Lane, and the degrees are even cheaper than I said, $1,500.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Really pretty remarkable. Okay, so what did I do this weekend? I have been trying to get out in the world more and do more experiential safaris. And so I'm going to try to remember to do a field report every week for the next few weeks. Most recently, we went over to the opening of Love Shack Fancy. It's a very high-end, shabby chic retailer. And my gosh, did they put on the Ritz for us. So it was the first store they've ever opened in New Jersey. We arrived, there's lines of young girls and their moms and grandmas. It was a whole multi-generational affair, lining around the block. The whole area had been taken over with bows made out of pink balloons. So we initially queued up, and while we were queued up, we were visited by all these other aspirationally chic young women handing us water bottles, bringing us candy apples and donuts and treats. There were dance parties. There was this whole floral experience, and honestly, on and on. So there were all these collaborations that were represented there with other high-end retailers. And the way they used what was a store opening to create brand loyalty and affinity and a sense of community was so inspiring. And I mean, so much of it stemmed from just the remarkable warmth of the founder, who is like a billionaire and has the best house I've ever seen, because I saw it on Instagram, of course. Because, that's what it does. And she was just so warm and connected and just had such an authentic level of interest in connecting with her community. And I'm not somebody who would spend $500 on a dress that my daughter's going to wear once. And we didn't. We bought her a robe because she would wear that every day.
Yeah.
But we were so swept up in the aspirational aspects of this experience, this whole energy and vibe and mood of it, that we could almost like feel ourselves taking on a persona.
Sure.
And it was really, to me, just so fascinating to see how in this era where we feel like so much of luxury retail is struggling to have a point of view, they had this broadly multi-generational group and this single space for an opening, connecting around a brand identity. So really interesting one to watch. And I think, they've expanded in really smart ways, slowly, and regionally for the most part, but with a very strong point of view on who their audience is. So they have stores in they have a store in a very high-end mall in Dallas. They have 2 in New York City. They have 1 in the state of New Jersey, right? So they're keeping it small and tight, but they're going exactly where their customer is and giving her what she wants.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds really fun.
It was fun. It was pretty. All right. Enough from Love Shack Fancy. I will leave you all humming Love Shack Baby in your heads. And we'll see you next week with a story on Six Flags and Travis Kelce, because it wouldn't be a day if you didn't hear the name Travis Kelce. Thanks for listening.